Oh. Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode number 11 of the Natural Female Muscle podcast. Today, we are joined by Zoe Leeming-Watts. Zoe is a multiple pro world champion in women's bodybuilding, both with the DFAC or DFAC and WNBF. And not only has Zoe been competing since 2016, but she is also a serving member in the British Army, which will be extremely interesting to talk about in terms of the balance with that, with work and bodybuilding. But it was absolutely incredible to meet Zoe last year and witness her win that Pro World title at WNBF Worlds in LA. And I'm just so excited to have her on the podcast today, as she is quite literally the best female bodybuilder in the world, which is absolutely incredible. So Zoe, thank you so much for coming on today.
Well, that's a good intro, that.
You're welcome. It's just the truth. No, thank you for coming on. How are you? Are you all good?
Yeah, very good, thank you. Nice deep into my off season there. Well, I'll say 6 months, about 6 months, isn't it? Just over 6 months, yeah. So yeah, it's just nice to sort of slowly get back into my training and get my strength back up and get a bit of fat back on. Because it's, I think that's important as soon as you've stepped off stage, is to just slowly get back into normality, really. And it's important to get your body starting to sort of get back to normal by putting weight on. So yeah, my strength is going up nicely in the gym. So yeah,
I know that's a big thing for you as well, because you mentioned that when I saw you at Worlds, and you were like, it's good to get a bit soft in the off season and get after it. And it was nice to kind of hear you say that, because I was seeing you up on stage shredded, but it helps kind of hear like what goes on behind that as well.
Oh yeah, definitely. Well, obviously when you see me on stage, I was like 55.5 kilos, and I've never been that since the age of probably around about 10. Even like when I'm being like 15, 16, I've always been around that sort of like 60 kilo mark anyway. So it's just, I think when you've been prepping that long, and it's well, you seem like you're going through the motions with your training, and because my body fat was that low, I had my body fat tested and I was like 4% body fat. You feel it around your joints and everything, and no matter how much food Rob Waterhouse was pumping into me, my energy levels was great, but it just seemed like you're going through your motion of your training. So when you get sort of slowly back into your off season, it does take a couple of months to sort of start feeling a little bit normal in the gym, and still now. But it's sort of nice to get back and feel sort of like normal in the gym, and my energy levels and stuff like that. And yeah, still now with me putting a stone and a half on, I still walk quite leanish still. Yeah. So it's still, you've got to, I'm trying to forget about that and thinking, right, I need to sort of aim a little bit higher this year, because if I'm going to compete next year, I need to make sure that I put in enough muscle mass, and yeah, like you said, get fluffy. So
yeah, it's what's needed, isn't it? And like you say, even though you're a little bit up in body weight, or even when you are leaner, if you're eating a lot of food, you're still super shredded. So your body's going to feel it regardless of what you're doing or what you're eating. You still feel so lean all the time.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Well, we'll bring things back a little bit, because we'll definitely touch on all of that a little bit later on. But this is something that I actually don't know anything about either. So I'm very interested to know a bit more about it. And that's basically like what your earliest context actually is with getting into training, like irrelevant of bodybuilding as well, in terms of what just got you into training, whether you had like a sporting background before that. And obviously with you having a background in the army, I'm assuming that maybe has played a role in that. So do you mind kind of just like letting us know what it was that really got you into training in the first place, and then we can see how that transitioned through to bodybuilding as well?
Yeah, with the army, it's sort of slightly different. It has changed now, because they are going to more sort of like, because I'm a PT in the army anyway, so I've done all sort of like the PT program for the soldiers on my barracks. But yeah, so like when I first joined the army, it was all run, pretty much run with kit. So it's, my body type it's very slim. Like to put on muscle mass, I sort of like didn't even think about it. It was just run. I was around about 53, 54 kilos, but I was a really good runner, bit of football at the time. And it weren't until I deployed to Afghanistan in 2014, that we had nothing out there, and we had some gym equipment. I made a gym, and then I sort of slowly started to sort of get into sort of like a little bit of CV, a bit of weight training then, and I actually realised that I actually preferred it, you know, and I felt like I got more out of it than just running all the time. So when I was in Afghanistan for quite a long period of time, it's like a 9-month tour, I actually come back quite shredded, and I was thinking, I actually like this look. And I was drinking no alcohol as well, and I was just eating normal. You know, the food is pretty decent in the army anyway. But yeah, when I got back from that tour, there was an approach by a lady in Wales when I was training down there, and she said to me, "You know what, you've got a good physique. Why don't you think about competing?" And I mentioned it on the podcast with WNBF a few weeks back.
Yeah.
I think, you know, she was thinking about me competing. My physique was, you know, that good competing in a non-drug tested fed. I was like, look, you know, I'm natural. I need to sort of stay on that long because I'm in the army, and I wouldn't think of that anyway. So, but yeah, then she sort of pointed me towards the BNBF, and then obviously my first competition was 2016. I did have a coach, Nick Openshaw, at the time, which I was pointing towards. So he helped me at the beginning. And it sort of just started from there, really.
Oh, wow. Was it quite a quick transition then, really, from you kind of like starting training in, I think you said was it 2014, you said you went to Afghanistan, and then kind of coming back, and then it was kind of like quite fast into the competing world from there?
Yeah, it was. And I think because I'd built my condition, sort of, because I built a little bit of muscle and stuff, started to build my body. I've got one of those body types, and I'm very, very lucky. I'm genetically just a genetic freak. So if I run all the time, I'll lose weight. If I train weights, then I'll put muscle on, and it's just weird how my body works. And
just respond really well, though.
It responds. So I'm very, very lucky on that aspect. But yeah, so obviously when I started to do it in 2016, and then obviously Nick Openshaw was starting to coach me, he was like, you know what, you look like you've competed like before. And then he did a training plan for me and stuff and that. And the diet plan wasn't that great because it was very low carb. But then he didn't know my body at the time. So he didn't know the output of my job in the army and how hard I do train in the gym. So my body was sort of like very low on the food aspect. But anyway, so I went to my first qualifiers, and I come second in my qualifiers, and then got to the British. So to get to the British first time, and I looked okay. My physique was still quite soft, but I think because I wasn't getting enough carbs, my condition weren't there fully. But yeah, I got to the British anyway, and then I ended up going to the Worlds, because they don't normally take the top 3 at the British. When I come third, they only normally take the top 2, but they said, Vicky McCann said, you know what, you've got such potential that you could do quite well. We'll take you to the Worlds anyway. So I was quite lucky on that. But in that time, I decided to like not speak to my coach Nick, and then just decided to do it myself. And then that's when I met Rob. So I was just like wanting food and stuff, and I was just like, you know, I'm just going to do it on my own. And I come second in the world then. And then that's when Rob took me on.
Did you meet Rob at that Worlds that year? Oh, wow, okay, amazing.
He was competing, you see, and he was brutally honest with me. He sat me down and he said to me, he said, you know what, Zoe? He asked me how long I've been training. I said, not long, you know, like since Afghanistan really, and that. And he said, you know what, you have got potential, Zoe. He said, your diet's totally wrong. He said, you're one of those people that just needs quite a lot of high carbs because of your job and everything. So he learned a little bit about me, of like my outputs just in the day, no matter with my training. He said, right, what I think you should do, he said, you don't have to. He said, get back to the UK. He said, take, I say off season, but take 3 months off. We'll bump your food up right up. I mean, I was bloated at the time because obviously I've been such little food. Went from like 1,400-500 calories to like, you know, just short of 3,000 calories. Bumped it up. And then it got round to about the end of March in 2017. He's gone, right, do you want to do another prep? He said, because you've already done a prep. He said, you just react to it again. He said, you're already sort of like holding a little bit condition. And that's what I did. And I think because I didn't sort of really have an off season, again, it was like my body, as soon as I started dieting, in 8 weeks, I looked uber shredded. So then I was ready for like a qualifier in July, come first in my qualifier, went to British, come first in Britain, and then went to the world, come first in the world, and then got my pro card. So I like to do that in like my second season. But I think because obviously a lot of people, you know, I'm not saying don't have an off season, but I think because I hadn't really done a full on prep in the first season, because it was up and down and I was on low calories, I just built a foundation, and then that put me in good stead for the 2017. But it did teach me a lot, and I think, you know, training's great, but I think if you get your food right, and your coach knows you with your food, I think that's the important part about it.
Yeah, 100%. I think it's like in that situation, it's so different than you doing a back-to-back season now. Like if you did a season again this year, it'd be so different because you were like so shredded last year. So when you did that first season in 2016, you were still very lean, but compared to what you're capable of getting in condition, it was different. And then you'd kind of like had that ability to learn and then actually spend that time with Bob before you did your prep in 2017. So it's just like learning your body, and then actually 2016 almost like a bit of a practice, and then 2017 being able to showcase your true potential in that year.
Yeah, definitely. I'd sort of take 2016 not as a season. It was just a learning curve, really.
I mean, you still went to Worlds.
we did. I did. But then I was up against a girl called Sue King, who obviously had a few seasons under her belt and that. And I just looked at her and I was thinking, wow, you look amazing. How do you get that shredded? And it's because she was on like the food, which brings you conditioning. Obviously, she trains hard as well. But yeah, so it did teach me a lot.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing though, isn't it? Is a lot of people think, oh, you want to get lean, let's just drop your food all the way down. But it's not the way that it works. And especially when you're somebody like yourself who, one, has great genetics, but two, actually, like, you train really hard and you're moving on, you need food to actually look good. And when you take food away from people who actually need it for their physique to shine, it just pulls away from you, and then you're not able to actually, you know, truly showcase everything on stage. Did you, in that first season, was, even though you maybe like knew you'd not showcase like your true potential, did you still really enjoy the experience and feel like this was something that you really wanted to do? Because I know maybe at that point it was like, oh, I'll just give it a go and kind of see how I get on. Like, how were you feeling after that first season? And did maybe that chat that you actually had with Rob as well at Worlds kind of help you to like visualize things a little bit more too?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think once you've stepped on stage, and everyone learns, it doesn't matter if you come first or fifth, it gives you that sort of that bug then. But yeah, I think I hate losing. I'm very competitive, obviously being in the army. And I think I thought, you know what, I can do really well here, and just listen to Rob. I mean, some parts I didn't like about it. I was thinking, God, if I eat all this food in prep in my season, I'm going to get like fat or something, or I'm going to put on weight and stuff like that. So, but even with him changing my diet and stuff, it helps so much with my training. And it does with my off season as well. I mean, I don't really stick to my macros as much in my off season. I just pretty much eat what I want, but I do try and get the good foods in, like similar to my season. But
of course.
It's definitely give me the book. And then when I did that year in 2017, I was like, right, we're on it. I'm like pro. So I was thinking, you know, and then I thought, if I want to come back on the pro stage in the DFAC, because you don't know who's going to be competing, because everyone's got a different off season and stuff. I was like, I need to take a good, you know, 2 years off to come back in 2019 to be able to be the best of me. So I needed that, definitely need that time between those two sort of like seasons, and then obviously worked because I come first pro in that. So
What did you guys change then, really, from when you started working with Rob from 2017-ish? What were the biggest changes? So you kind of mentioned that you probably started eating more. That massively helped. But how did that reflect in your training? And how have you guys actually always sort of run your training in terms of like the frequency of the training and the way that you like to train as well?
Yeah, so right, you're gonna laugh. So Rob does my he does my diet and he does my protein.
Okay.
And I do my check-ins as well.
Yeah.
Now he always asks me, 'cause I do my training plan, you see.
Right.
And
Yeah.
he always asks me to send it across. I said, look, Rob, I said I do that much that I can't be bothered to type it all up because there's that much in it. But I think just by me, because I think if I want to make something better within myself, with my training, I always just research it and I just go online. And I do follow other people, like other female bodybuilders and stuff, like even just on Instagram, thinking, right, well, how are they training? And then I look at it and I research it. And a lot of guys, like I said before on the other podcast, they just do the bro split. So once I found out about, this bro split, and then I found out that my legs were weakest point at that time of my season, in 2000, sort of like when I was going into my off season 2018, I thought, right, my leg's my weak point, because that's what Vicky McCann says in the BNBF. I'm going to do my bro split. So I've just took that information off the net pretty much. I'm going to just include legs twice into my training. So it's literally push, pull, legs, arms, which is a sort of off day, legs, and then off. And then once I did that, I've seen so much progress with my legs and stuff. And then what I did start to incorporate, because I knew that sort of my lats lacked a little bit, I was doing 2 back sessions and as well. So you know what, my legs are starting to come on. I still need to make my rear look a little bit better. So that's what I did. So that during them 2 years, I pretty much did push, pull. So it would be a push session, which would be shoulders, pull, which would be upper back, then it'd be legs, which would be quad dominant, and then it'd be sort of off, depending on if I felt like it, arms, and then it'd be again same rotation, but I'd be hitting lower back deadlift, and I'll be hitting hamstrings and glutes. So there's a lot of volume in my hamstrings and glutes, because I'm sort of hitting them like sometimes 2-3 times a week, because I hit it in a back session, in my deadlift or my straight leg, and then I'm hitting it in my leg sessions as well. So it's same, so it's quite a lot of volume, but I just do that's what I do. I've not got Rob doing my training plan. If anything, Rob, if I showed Rob my training plan, he'd be like, you're doing actually too much. But I think because I'm on such high food, I'm one of those people that I won't handle it until I feel satisfied, which is probably sometimes the wrong way to do it. But
do you tend to run quite a lot of volume in the sessions themselves, in terms of like the amount of sets that you'll do across movements too?
Yeah, so I mean, I'll always have one element which is like high volume. So for example, so for one leg session, I'd have squat, but then if I have squat on one leg session, I'd hit hack on the next.
Right, yeah.
And then maybe do a bit of straight leg. So that's quite a lot of volume in those. So, but then I'd hit all the sort of like, your leg extension machines and all the sort of like the machinery stuff. And then on a back day, if I had deadlift, I mean, one back day on deadlift, I'll hit a lot of just stuff like bar work. So it'll be deadlift, it'll be high row, then it'd be drop rows, like drop to the floor rows. Then it'd be a T-bar row. So by the time I've done all that, it's took me at least an hour and a half to do all that. So, I mean, people are thinking, why is she on that bar for that? But I'll have to do 5 working sets. So on average, I do 5 working sets on each exercise, which is enough for me, really. But yes, so I could spend a whole sort of session on just bar, and then I hit like a few lat pull downs, and then do sort of like wire based stuff. If I'm just doing like low rows and stuff like that. So but I mean, when you read, I'm a big believer. When I've read Arnold's blueprint, the way he trains his back is the same way I train my back, and he just uses a lot of bar work and free weights, but then he'll mix it up. So like one session, he'll do one session one way, and then next time he goes into the gym, he'll just mix it up so it shocks the muscle. So you're not used to just saying, right, I'm going to do deadlift, then I'm going to do low row, then I'll just change the way every time. That's the only way. Sometimes I do it to just shock them a little bit. it is definitely a lot of volume. I mean, I burn off about 1,000 calories easy in one of my sessions.
That's
So then
why
I
you
need to at
feed
least keep 3 to 4 at least,
it.
4,000 calories at least in my off season to be able to balance that out. Yeah.
Yeah. Have you always liked to train that way as well? You've never really changed it too much?
Yeah, I think even with me being in the army, the army is very much, you get an hour session, you go max out, full intensity. And if you don't, you get told off.
Yeah.
So
It's a
yeah,
mindset thing more than
yeah,
anything, isn't it?
yeah. But then now I'm looking on Instagram, especially with yourself and stuff like that, the way you're training, and is it JP's missus and stuff, when she was obviously doing her stuff and that. It's very sort of take time and contracting the muscle and making sure you're engaging it and feeling it. Now I've started to do that with a lot of lighter stuff.
Yeah.
That's only recent. That's only since I've come off stage in November. So rather than me going all out, I'm like making sure that maybe on a few exercises I am doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think start injuries and stuff.
Yeah, there's two sides of it, isn't there? I think that there's like just for injury management, and then two, it's like once you've built such an amazing foundation like you have, it's like if there's little things that you want to improve, then that's where things like that can be really helpful. But I think there's a lot to be said for, you know, people can fine tune like little things and say, oh, we should do this or that, but no matter what, I think there's always going to be something to be said for just like hard work and going in and doing absolutely everything that you have. And unfortunately, I think for a lot of people, especially now, there's maybe like a lot of an approach where they're trying to make everything perfect from the start, rather than actually just going in and, like you say, doing everything that you possibly can do, and then starting to find what works for them. And like you just say, you know, maximum effort is really like the main thing that kind of matters and brings the enjoyment to training in the first place.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. I think Rob was quite surprised. I've only ever done one training session with Rob, and funny enough, with legs.
Yeah.
And Rob does no more than an hour and a half. I mean, I train well over that because to hit everything and stuff. So, but then I don't really do no CB, so that sort of counterbalances it.
Yeah.
I'd rather go out in all one session and not wake up early in the morning to do fasted cardio. So, but he was quite surprised because when we was on a leg press, he put 2 plates on, and then I was like, put 2 other plates on, and he looked at me and said, "You're looking all right here," and I was like, "Yeah," and another 2. And his ego actually went. And he was like, Jesus, he said, "You just keep going and going." He said, "You're like superhuman." I said, "Well, it's because of you, because you keep on feeding me." So, but yeah, I think it's just the energy that I've got from the food. I'm just one of those people that reacts very, very well with carbohydrate. If you took carbohydrate away from me, I'd like to see how my body would react to it. I think I'd feel like, even on high carbohydrates in my prep, I even get sort of like, you know, when you feel like glycemic because you push yourself that much.
Yeah.
You get a little bit of shivers and stuff. And Rob was like, "Robin, you need to just have blueberries extra, just like while you're training and stuff." But that's how my body just is. It just, because I push that much, and straight away, as soon as I've trained, carbohydrates go straight back in again.
Yeah.
It's not the protein, it's carbohydrate as much as the protein, but that goes straight in.
Yeah, of course. Well, it's like all the activity is so like glycogen demanding. So it's going to need a lot for it. And I see that even with like somebody like Keefe, for example, who, you know, Keith, he obviously trains like a nutter as well. But because he trains so much and he does like constant training, like 7 days a week, like that's why he needs to eat so much food. And when you're genetically able to like handle that, it's like you just have to be responsive to it, because the thing is, like, everyone's so different. And if you can handle that, if I could handle that, I'd definitely do it. Unfortunately, I think my body would snap because I'm fragile. I don't have the best genetics for it. But yeah, it's like you have to, even if your coach is like a bit shocked, it's like, well, this is what works for you, and you're used to being so active, and that's what you can handle, which is like what's important. I think it's important for people to know that there's not just one thing that kind of works for everyone. It's like there's going to be different things that you can handle for yourself, and not to be afraid to kind of push where those limits are, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Do you want to actually touch upon then kind of like how that off season actually was in 2018? Because that must have been like your first proper off season that you kind of ran within bodybuilding, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. It's quite, because it's quite interesting actually, because again it taught me a lot, because I was new into bodybuilding.
Yeah.
Rob gave me sort of like an off season plan, which some of it I stuck to, some of it I'm more sort of, because I like my pie, my chips and my mash and stuff, so like big stodgy meals were also going in. So I was making sure that, I'd get my oats in and stuff like that, and maybe some rice at lunch, like just making sure that I get them sort of foods in. But yeah, so it taught me a lot, because obviously I got that shredded in the DFAC in the world finals in 2017. Rob was like, right, slowly start to introduce obviously a range of foods and that. He said, but what you need to do now, so he said, you need to have a really good off season, get your weight back to normal, functionally get back to normal, i.e. your cycles and everything like that, because my body fat was that low.
Yeah.
He said, and he said it might take it might take a year. He said, but the 2 years off season that you can take, so you might take 3 years, it's up to you, but the first year is just sort of like your recovery phase.
Yeah.
So just make sure that you slowly start to get back to normal. He said, and I'll keep an eye on it. So we're doing a check-in. He said, in about 6 months' time, if you want to do that, just sort of keep an eye on you. It's like, right, okay. So me being me, I was like, right, okay, this is great. And then I weren't really like listening to Rob in regards to like probably getting the right foods in, and I was probably being a little bit say the first 2 to 3 months probably not eating enough as what I should do in your off season, because I was thinking, oh yeah, I just need to be eating an extra 200-300 calories, I'll be fine on top of what I've just been eating. But then I stayed lean. It was like my body wasn't changing. And I did a check-in with Rob 6 months later, and he's gone, what are you doing, Zoe? And I was like, what do you mean? He said, you could get on stage in about 4 weeks' time. It's gone, what are you eating? And I said to him, I said, I've just been, sort of following your plan, but not. I said, just been eating an extra bit. And he's gone, Zoe, you need to bump your food up. He said, I've given you a plan. He said, don't care how you do it. He said, bump it up, get fluffy. He said, and he said, you still haven't got your cycles back either. He said, you need your body to get back to normal. And I think, when you sort of like look in your mirror and you want to stay shredded, I just had to get my head around that, thinking I can't stay this lean. And I sort of listened to Rob after 6 months, and then that was the best thing I actually did, because then I just ate pretty much what I wanted. I sort of tracked it for a little bit to see how much I was eating, and actually the amount of food that I was eating, which was just short of, well, in fact, it was on one day, on a Saturday, if I'm eating like a pizza or something, it's probably about 4,500 calories. And my body weren't actually going up that much. It was only going up a little bit, like, maybe a pound every like 2 weeks and stuff, to the point where I started to put on weight slowly. I was like, this is great. I'm actually feeling a lot better in my training. And obviously, as each season, you're going to get heavier anyway, because you put more muscle mass on. So I still looked fairly leanish, but I ended up, again, like I said, I put on about a stone and a half in about a year. And I still looked quite lean with it, but I felt actually a lot better. But again, it's getting that balance and just trusting that you can actually still look good and feel good with just by pumping your food up and stuff. So, but yeah, it took about a year for me to get back to normality. I mean, it took 9 months for my period to come back.
Yeah, it can take about that long, really, especially when you're getting as lean as you are, and instantly also maybe not adding a load of body fat on straight away. Does your body actually quite like to sit naturally quite lean as it is anyway?
Yeah, I think it does. It's only really this year now, where for the first talks, sometimes I can still squeeze into my jeans, like it's a tight fit. But this time, this is the first time when my combat bottoms, my army bottoms, I was thinking, I'm gonna have to exchange these because these are getting tight. But a couple of years back, I'd be like, oh no. But now I'm actually, it's like my wife, she said, Zoe, each year you're getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So each season you're gonna get bigger because you're gonna put more muscle mass on. So that's psychologically, that's the way I'll get around it. And I think, you know what, have to get another set. In 19 years that I've served in the army, I have to get another set of combat buttons. Then
Shows you growing though, doesn't it? And that's what you want. So I think it's hard because you can't always see like the growth so like instantly in the moment either as well. But I think that we have to remember, like, I think so many women are like, oh, I don't want to see the scales go up because I'm just putting body fat on. And it's like, well, if you're actually training really hard, you're not going to just be putting body fat on. You're going to be actually adding muscle on there as well. And that's what we want. That's what we're trying to do. And it's all worth it in the end, but it can be challenging, I think, especially the first time that you do it as well, when you have been so lean.
Yeah. This is, I mean, I'm still quite light. I mean, I want to try and get up to about 70 by the end of the year. So I'm 65 kilos. So my last off season, when I did my check-in with Rob before starting my season, I was like 63. So, but I've done that since coming off stage in November. So I've gone from 55 to now 65, which is the heaviest I've ever been. But I still look lean. I'm like, you know what? I could really push this now for the next, say, a good 6 months and I'll still at 70 kilos, probably still look, I think I'm still going to look fairly leanish still.
You will do. You definitely will. If you're 65 at the moment, you were 55 on stage, promise you.
Yeah, and then 70 kilos is sometimes not a lot of it. Like looking at some people on Instagram, like my friend who's got really good muscle mass, she's like 77 kilos. I'm like, she's actually pretty decent at the scales. What I've learned with scales is just, we need to just scrap them. It's the way
I think it's like the first time you hit any body weight, I think it's easy to get like worried about it. Like I used to think that, like, for example, the body weight I'm at the moment used to look terrible. And I used to think, oh, I look so fat there. And now I feel quite comfortable here. And I think it's like, you just get more used to sitting like heavy ones, and you can't be scared of being a little bit heavier if you want to grow and you want to get strong. And I think the more that you're able to focus on, how do I look? How do I feel? How am I performing? Rather than worrying about the number, I think it makes it just so much more enjoyable. But I'd like to see you get heavier and get really strong, because you're already smashing it. So I want to see you do even more.
I think that, even Katie, my wife, she's like, you need big butt. It's the only place that I struggle to put it on. It, you know what? That's probably why my glutes got so shredded, because I haven't got a lot to lose off them.
Yeah, I wish I had the same. Unfortunately, I think I have to diet for about 40 years to get lines in my bum.
So
it's good fun though. One thing I'd actually quite like to ask you about that 2019 season, because you won the DFAC Pro that year at the Worlds, didn't you? Which was insane. But you also did the UK DFBA that year, and I think you came fourth, which was actually, I looked back at the pictures, and that was a crazy lineup that year, because I think there was you, Leanne Barrett, there was Danny Carr, and there was a lady called Mary from Germany who won. Which, for like women's bodybuilding, like sometimes the lineups are either like massive or there's like nobody there. And I was like, I was like, I wish I was at that, because I'd have loved to have seen that. But following on from obviously like winning like so many shows and also having a pro card and then going into that, I mean, I think all the people in that lineup now are actually pros. So it's like, at the time it was an amateur lineup, but you're all like amazing pros now. But what was that show actually like for you at the time? Because I know you said that maybe like you'd missed the mark a little bit on the show day too. How
it was
that experience?
It was before the DFAC.
Okay.
So I think it was around about, it's about 6 weeks before the DFAC. So Rob said to me, look, so he said, because I hadn't picked any competitions that year apart from that. I was just like DFAC focused.
Yeah, of course.
Rob was like, you need to pick a competition, because you haven't been on stage, you know, you haven't been on stage for 2 years, just pick a competition. So UK DFBA, they're a great fed anyway. So I'm not sure, I can't remember the guy that runs it actually, but anyway, he's a nice bloke. I spoke to him, he's really nice. So went there, and I was pretty much ready for the DFAC anyway. So I was like, again, uber shredded. And then when I was in the pump up room, even Danny said to me, she's gone, you've got this. So like, and Danny's so awesome. But Danny, with the difference between me and Danny is, I mean, Danny's an awesome athlete.
Yeah.
I'd say she's got a little bit more size on than me, but a little bit softer.
Yeah. It's like you carry a much harder, leaner look.
Yeah.
So
yeah. So like literally, like, I mean, on to the bone. It's and I think that's just the way I am. I'm like, I need to get as shredded as I can until I've pretty much got nothing left on me, sort of thing, where I think that did do me justice at the UK DFBA, because even the girl that come first, I mean, I was more shredded than her, but I think she had a little bit more of a bulky look on the top of the shoulders and stuff like that. So, I mean, when you look at, especially when you look at my rear double bicep on some of the shots, I mean, it was totally, I mean, in my opinion, totally won it. And I think the front shots, a few girls probably looked a little bit bigger than me because I was so shredded.
Yeah.
And maybe the judges looked at a better all-rounder package rather than, I don't know. But then one of the judges said to me, he said, Zoe, don't, because obviously I was getting ready for the DFAC. He said, he think because I was so conditioned that maybe have let me down a little bit in a way. I think I couldn't get my head around it. So, but then that freaked me out then, because I was thinking, I thought I'm not ready for the DFAC, but yet the BNBF are more shredded, conditioned based. So different federations, I think, sometimes look for a little bit of a different look, depending on what class it is as well. So it depends on the day, doesn't it, really?
It does. And I think that lineup on that day, you were the most shredded by far, but then you stand out because the others weren't as shredded and they were more like carrying like a fuller, less shredded look. So then it's like you stand out, but maybe feel like the reasons that judges think, oh, okay, well, these three, we can judge them like this. And then Zoe still looks great, but she looks so much leaner than the rest. So we'll look at the others. And I think that, like you say, it can change from federation, it can change in lineup, it can change even from amateur to pro level as well, because I think definitely on the pro level, it's expected that, especially as a female bodybuilder, a physique athlete, it's like we want to see lines in your hamstrings and your glutes, and they need to be all the way in. So I think that sometimes it just depends on the day, and I think it's good that, I know you said you're a bit freaked out because sometimes that happens, but then you still kind of stick with what you know, and you went on to the DFAC Worlds and you were rewarded for what was ultimately still a pro winning worthy physique.
Yeah, and even if you look at the 2019 pictures, I mean, I haven't really got a lot of pictures on Instagram, but there's one picture with me lined up with all the girls, DFAC, and actually I was the smallest. If you look at them from left to right, I am the smallest athlete, but because I come in so shredded, Vicky McCann's like, she's all about condition, and especially if a female can get her legs in as well. So,
it's the completeness of the look. And I think I saw Vicky say somewhere, because obviously Vicky, the incredible athlete herself, and she'd said she always had appreciation for judges who could see like females who have a smaller frame, but it's like relative to that how much muscle they carry, because it is always relative, you know, like you can get females with a slightly bigger frame who look like you say, a bit bigger up top or whatever it is, but it's always relative to the athlete. So it's like, even on that stage, you were saying you were maybe smaller, but your whole package was still carrying a lot of muscle for your frame and as shredded as you could possibly get. And you have to judge each athlete as it is, as per the criteria.
Yeah, definitely. I'm a big believer for that. And I think, because I might be judging on the WNBF if they need extra judging. Wow. So that'll be my first judging show. And I think that I'm a big believer for that.
Yeah.
Because someone's a little bit smaller, but like symmetry is bang on, shreddedness, you know, with a little bit of fullness as well. It's just all those elements. Don't, just because there's another guy next to them or girl that's massive, doesn't mean anything. I think I think it was 2018. I was watching the DFAC on my off season, and there was this big American girl that competed, and she looked a little bit too soft. But she looked huge compared to all the other girls. But I don't know why I thought this. I was thinking, bloody hell, she's gonna win this. Look at the size of her, sort of thing. But then Katie, again, my wife, she's like, no, we're gonna go condition, and she was right, condition. But the thing is, you could see that. I mean, some people like just graft with their prep, and you can see it by the condition.
Yeah.
And and that's why it goes. But then maybe if that lady had competed with a different fed, it might go a different way. So but then with Rob, I think one thing is sort of like is teaching me now is that it's all, he knows I bring in the condition, but he's trying to make me look a little bit like fuller on stage. So he will be giving me extra foods so I don't sort of look so drawn, and he did that with the MPA. He did with that with MPA in last year. So
I was going to say, what did you guys sort of do differently, or did you do anything differently really with the whole prep over the past year in 2022 in terms of like getting you in shape, but then also getting you on stage? Did you take any sort of different protocols with the prep itself or anything like that?
Yeah, I just had a shorter prep.
Okay.
So I normally start the prep in the January. So it's quite a long prep for me to prep in January to then aim for the DFAC, which around about October, middle of October. But it's like I said to him, I was like, you start me so early, and then he says that I drop too quick, and then he's putting in proper cheat meals and stuff. I was like, I'd rather just, as in like burger and chips and that.
Yeah.
I'd rather just start a later prep. So that's what I did. So I started in the May, and I'd only done, I think it was like, it was like 6 to 7 weeks, and I started to come in again. And then I was having like cheat meals in the week. And then MPA was around about 10 weeks of dieting. So, I mean, looking now back at my MPA pictures, I mean, they thought I was like amazing. I was thinking I've only done like 10 weeks.
You were leaner than most of the males in the competition, I think.
Oh no. But then me being me, you can see that my glutes hadn't, I mean, you could see my glutes slightly shredded, but they weren't all the way in, the same as my hammies. And obviously it got towards the end of my prep. But that obviously that shorter season, I think it benefited me doing a shorter sort of like as in like rather than starting in January, starting in May, because again I kept my cycles for longer and stuff. So it weren't until like about 5 weeks out, and that's when I stopped my period. So I think functionally my body was probably in a better place. I looked a lot fuller as well. And then with Rob's approach, rather than him just so say on my peak week, he'd be like, right, this is the amount of calories, but just keep tabs on me. Like he wanted me to check in every 4 hours with him. I'm doing like
much
checking every 4 hours. He's like, no, it's like, right, more potato. He's only got extra potato. I was like, I bought extra potatoes, Rob, but not more extra potato. So he just gave me extra food. So that's the only sort of different. He just wanted me to look as full as I could.
Which for somebody like yourself, when you take in the food so well like that, like it makes such a huge difference if you can have somebody who's like keeping an eye on it and be like, let's make sure we're not letting you just kind of wither out. Because I bet probably the first couple of meals or couple of days that you're taking in more food, your body probably just like soaks it all up.
Yeah, it did. And you know what he said to me? He said, don't worry if you overspill. I know that was freaking me out again. So what if I look too soft? He's like, Zoe, he said, just don't worry about overspilling. If anything, you're just going to look bigger, but a little bit less shredded. Don't worry about it. He said he won't change that much. But so he was giving me even more food. So that's the only sort of, on the peak weeks were very different. He was just giving me more food, and I didn't feel like I overspilled, and obviously I looked good on the pictures. So
Did your peaks change all across the year, like from the MPA to the WNBF to the Worlds? Were the weeks like fairly similar, or did they actually change across the year at all?
They're exactly the same. I mean, so he drops. So he sort of makes sure that I do my last leg session on the Sunday, because obviously the swelling of the legs. So Saturday or Sunday. So it's always been that. and then he'll go from like, because when I'm dieting, I'm around about 2,900 calories dieting. So then he'll drop me right down on the Monday to around about 2,004, and then it'll go 1,500, and then on the Wednesday it'll get to about something like 1,000 calories. But then I'm just training, obviously it's lighter sessions, but you'll make sure like I do a push, a pull, and then maybe an arms on a Wednesday, and then that's it then, and then I rest. And then he does a major sort of carb refeed on the Thursday, Friday, which is through the roof. It is like I struggle with it to then compete on the Saturday, which I'm on normal food. So I'm on around about 3.2 kilos of potato on both days. So it's literally 350 gram, white potato, like every 2 to 3 hours. And then it gets 12 o'clock and it changes to sweet potato. And then I have a 200-gram fillet steak before I go to bed. That's on both days. And then he said, if you need more, he said, he'll give me more.
See your face just saying that.
A lot of potato with obviously 6 litres of water as well. So the water stays high both days. So yes, it's a lot of food, but that's been the same since I've been competing and since I've been coached with Rob, and he's kept it because he knows me.
Knows it works, so you don't need to.
Yeah. Whereas some people do things differently.
Yeah. Does that help you carry a lot more confidence when you go into the shows as well? Because you have so much trust in Rob and you know that he knows that this works.
Yeah, and it is. And I think when I do, especially when I was in the Cayman Islands, there's a few guys out there as well when they were videoing me, and obviously I did this massive big carb refeed, and then the next day I woke up and you still had like a day to go of like high carbs. They were like, oh my God, so you can just see your skin has got thinner and it's zapped it, and you actually look more shredded. So I think that water to ratio with the potato it just works for me, and it makes me just it's a really dry look. So I think as the years have gone on, I know it works, and I need to make sure that I eat all the potato.
Does that peak as well with the sort of like, because you obviously rest and obviously carb up quite a lot, do you find that then when you're backstage on like the Saturday or the Sunday and you're pumping up, that's really like you really feel everything kind of like come to life at that point?
Well, I think it's like even just the first and second day of the carb, that's when everything is because it's weird because it's like it's like I've ate a load of sugar and I get more vascular. It's easy for me to explain. I know them 2 days, so I know when I get on stage on the Saturday, it just means to make sure that I'm getting enough food in, because Rob keeps it very just like normal days food on the Saturday, and then he just adds maybe grapes or dark chocolate. Chocolate, again, that reacts to me. A little bit of a trick as well, which some people might disagree with. Jack Daniels.
Oh, I love it.
So when I've had a Jack Daniels, I was like, I've had the Jack Daniels before, and I was like, I've gone all the way to the overalls. I can't wait for a drink. So I've had a Jack Daniels. I've actually looked more vascular.
So it helps you drop off a bit of stress as well.
I feel maybe a little bit drunk, but it's weird. And I was like, looked at my skin, I was like, Jesus, it's helped me better than the dark chocolate. But it's funny enough, I read a lot of things about bodybuilders and what they do before they get on stage and stuff. And I've seen a lot of figure girls and they drink white wine and stuff like that, which I wouldn't do. But I think some of the guys do drink like a bourbon whiskey to make themselves look more vascular.
There's just so, it's sometimes hard because there's like so much information from so many people doing different things, but I think at the end of the day, when you find what works for you, that's really what matters most. And you pretty much nailed the recipe on that front. I don't think you can deny winning 2 Pro World titles in 1 year. So
yes, which I was very, very happy with. The Supernaturals, that was a lastminute.com decision. That was it was until Steph Noble at the MPA. She said, you maybe should consider it. I decided to do it. I spoke to Rob before I decided to do it, because I didn't know if federations got a little bit funny maybe with you competing with other federations as pros as well. Like, but obviously that was before I got that pro card. So he spoke to Vicky. She's fine with it, you know. And I think the more competitions you've got is the better preparation. And the WNBF was absolutely, I'm so glad I did it. It's amazing. I think the amount of athletes compared to other federations that I competed with was just insane. And it did put me on my toes because I didn't know. I know I went in there as an amateur, but even then the lineup was the biggest lineup I've had as a pro, but as an amateur, if that makes sense. So the lineup was, I was thinking this could go either way. So I was thinking, even though I'm a DFAC Pro, there's some girls here that I think could have beat me. So and then obviously I won that and got my pro card, and then I went into the overalls. Didn't expect to win the overalls because again it's different classes against each other, and the rules could have each other, and I won that and won my pro card, and that's why I was so glad I did it. I was thinking, and then I've had another opportunity to go to another world championship. So I had DFAC in the Cayman Islands and then LA. So
did the DFAC go? Was it the DFAC first and then it was LA afterwards?
Yes, yeah. So it was pretty much within a week. So I went to DFAC for a week, and then I got stuck over there because there was a hurricane. So I got stranded over there for 3 days. I was thinking, I'm not going to get back, or should I just stay here and just pay for a flight to go over to LA to come back to the UK to think about over. So it was pretty much like a week. So I was pretty much. Rob was he backed off on the peak week. He said, right, so he said that's the only time that you're not going to have a peak week because you're that drained of the DFAC, and that was your main goal anyway. He said, I'm just going to feed you in to a competition. So I didn't have a peak week. I trained as normal, but obviously low intensity. Kept my food nice and high, and then if anything, again I dropped even more. So I didn't even really have a peak week. That's the only time I didn't have a peak week. And then and then again at LA, the girl that won, the girl that comes second to me, she's like undefeated, like 6 years. So I was like, I'm coming up against
I remember watching it and I was like, Zoe's gonna win. And it was pretty cool to see that. But I think that, did you actually feel a little bit better almost going into that because you'd not peaked, but you were actually just like feeding in and just dropping off stress and probably just feeling better and better going into it?
Yeah, I think it was more, it was less stressful. And I thought, you know what, because I'm like that head, like I just want to win. I thought, you know what, this experience now, I've just got a WNBF Pro card. I'm like, I'm just going to enjoy it more. So I'm just going to do a different routine. So the routine I did at the WNBF was different to the DFAC. A little bit with like Squid Games mask. I'm just gonna enjoy it, and if I win, I win. Great. And so it's a lot more chilled out. And like I said, I didn't have that much stress of doing a peak week. And my energy levels were a lot better, and then it obviously worked. So I was thinking, you know what, sometimes you think, well, do I actually have to do a peak week? If your coach is saying you're actually ready, then don't get stressed out about doing a peak week. So that's another thing I've learned.
I suppose the peak week is there to get you looking your best on the Sunday or the Saturday. And at the end of the day, whatever happens in that week, whatever you need to do is what happens. It doesn't need to be a set peak week protocol or whatever it is. It's just whatever suits you in that specific week leading into that show. Yeah,
that's it. And it worked. So
did you enjoy both of those experiences as well? Because I know that the shows are amazing, but do you enjoy even just going to like LA and going to the Cayman Islands and being with the teams? Is that something that you really enjoy as well?
Yeah, that's the best part, I think. And you know that you're all going through similar preps. You've all, worked hard all year. Some people have had longer preps than others, and then just the team thing at the end. And I think both federations put on some good stuff like boat parties, and in LA they had like team meet up for like food and stuff, and I think like the organisers of both federations, both great, because they ensure that they look after the athletes, and even like backstage and stuff, just ensuring that just the minor things. If I was to organise an event, just making sure that you've got stuff to pump up, and because you're stressing about it, because you've maybe first time athlete and stuff, and you don't know what to do and that, so you're thinking, oh, maybe I should have brought some bands and stuff. But I think just those little things that make it less stressful, and everyone around you, because like I said, being through the same process, and then at the end of it, you can just enjoy the American food and Gold's Gym.
Yeah, the weather was amazing as well. It was so fun, that whole experience. I was obviously not even competing, but I was just there for the ride. I was having a great time.
I think the only thing that I was gutted about was because I had a 30 minutes drive to Gold's Gym, and I went there every day. And I got a text halfway back to my Airbnb, and one of the guys said to me, he said, "You need to turn around." And I was like, "I got this message." So I pulled over. I was thinking, what's this? I thought something was wrong. He said, "Oh yeah, Arnold Schwarzenegger is training in Gold's Gym." I was like, "I'm not turning around now." I was like, gutted, because he was obviously training in there.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, so I missed him, but apparently his son trained in there as well. So I was gutted that I didn't get a picture. So that'd have been like absolutely splattered all over my Instagram. But no, it's a good experience.
Hopefully one day I'll have to go back again.
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing to ask from here now then is, where are you planning to go from here? Like, what's your next goal from this point onwards? Because you've pretty much won everything. But what's the goal? Do you want the number one thing that obviously pops to mind is wanting to retain those titles. So is that sort of what you've got your vision on moving forwards, or what do your competitive goals look like ahead?
Yeah. So I'm definitely going to compete with DFAC, the WNBF. I'm going to keep that going anyway. But my next goal is to put enough size on. I've been looking into it. So Rob said to me, he said he thinks I should compete in a non-drug tested fed as a natural athlete.
Yeah.
But then I might have to come down a few categories depending on how I'm looking. Which it's a bit trying to get my head around with all that as well, because I have been looking at a few girls on Instagram that are obviously enhanced, that when they're on stage, they're around about 58, 59 kilos when they're competing. I'm thinking, you know what, that's not much bigger than me. So I was thinking, if Rob kept me full, then I could probably go up against them. But yeah, so he's sort of like, he said to me, I need to decide on one competition to do, and obviously he'll help me with that because he's best advice for that. So there's a competition. I think is it MPC to then compete with the IFBB?
Yes.
So that's a competition I'm looking at next year. So it'll be to compete with them and then to aim for the IFBB. And Rob, when he went over to the IFBB before he got his IFBB Pro Card, as a natural, he come 14th out of 40 guys, which I think, you know what, that's a really good achievement. So I might not be coming first, but obviously I will be coming first on the DFAC and WNBF because I won't let that go. I'm just going to get bigger for that. But yes, I'd like to just push while I'm in a good place in my physique, because I'm getting older as well. And you know what it's like as you get older, testosterone levels drop and all that. To compete in one of those, that NPC federations thing, compete with the IFBB or two bros or whatever, and then sort of see where it leads from there. But I think with Rob, learning from myself as well, he will need to keep me a little bit fuller for that competition, rather than thinking shredded.
Because they don't even get as shredded as you do. So it's
looking at some of the females, you know what I'm thinking, that there's no way they've got shredded hamstrings and glutes as close to mine, but they're obviously looking a little bit bigger. So it might mean that me doing an earlier competition looking a little bit bigger and fuller.
Yeah, well, that would be really cool to see though. It's a step that I like to see, and I've seen a lot of obviously Rob's doing, which is insane. So cool to see him do that. But a lot of natural athletes, female and male, when they get to that top level within the natural comps, to see them take that step and compete with the assisted athletes and stand on their own, you know, it's really cool. And it's very inspiring for a lot of people to see as well. So I really look forward to seeing that. I think that'd be awesome.
Yeah, and I know I'm very competitive, but I think I'm going into this looking at it very, very differently, I think. And there's only so much I can push my body as a natural anyway. So as long as I go into the competition knowing it's the best I could look and the biggest I can look naturally with some condition as well, then I've pretty much achieved that aim. So it doesn't matter even if I come last. I think just stepping on stage, I think just getting the balls, I say balls, thank God, just step on stage with, you know, some people are like, no way, I would never do that. But there's not much difference really. Condition wise, I'll probably beat them, but it's just getting that size bit right. So it might, like Rob said, I might have to put a set of heels on, for example, to come down a few degrees, which I'm not too sure yet.
Yeah, well, you'll see when it comes round, but I think no matter what, it's like I say, it's the principle of doing it that makes it so cool and achieving to see. And like I said, so many people see that and think it's pretty damn cool. I know I will anyway. So
you're one to watch out for. I've got you.
Maybe one day. No, you're definitely very inspirational for me. It's been awesome to see your journey, and like to see you honestly in person last year was pretty incredible. If anyone gets the opportunity to see Zoe's physique in real life, it's very, very cool if you like stuff like that. So I was pretty blown away. So it was awesome to see you up there last year, and it's been lovely to have a chat with you today as well. Thank you so much for coming on, because it's just nice to chat to you really about how your journey's been, to also just catch up with you as well, because I've not spoken to you properly since I saw you last November or whenever it was. So yeah, thank you so much for coming on today. If anyone wants to find you, I think you're the Natural Physique on Instagram. Yeah, I'll make sure to link that in the description, so everyone go check Zoe out. Yeah, thank you, Zoe, so much for coming on today. Thank you, everybody, for listening. If you have listened to this episode, if you've enjoyed it as well, if you can give us a follow and a rate on Spotify and a like and a subscribe on YouTube, that would be fantastic. And I'll be back with another episode next week.